Hello and welcome to the Verbal Commitment Podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Kevin Flaherty. I'm here as always with my good friend Ryan Wallace. We're talking about the world of local recruiting from Kansas and Kansas City prospects to the college classes at Kansas, Kansas State, and Missouri. This week, we'll be talking with Derby head coach Brandon Clark, a former Kansas State player under Bill Snyder, who has won 6 state titles with the Panthers. To find all of our episodes from here on out, subscribe to the KCSN Varsity channel to follow along. You'll get a notification if we do a live show, like we did with Ian Premer announcing his finalists this past year. And we do have plans to do more stuff like that here in the future. And you'll be able to find each show regardless of its content there. If it's a Kansas State show, Kansas show, Missouri show, all of them will be on KCSN Varsity, so you won't have to go searching for us. And it's not just our show now on the channel. KCSN just released its first episode of KC Hoops, a local high school basketball and recruiting show with Mark Kern. So you have yet another reason to subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe and check that episode out. Remember to like this video and leave us a comment as well. We do check our comments and try to answer any questions that we do find. If you're listening on an audio platform, you can leave us a review, a 5-star rating, wherever you get your podcasts like Apple or Spotify, and follow along with Verbal Commitment on KCSN there. Word of mouth always helps us too, so tell your friends about us. As always, we appreciate you guys helping us to grow the show and putting us in front of more people like you.
Hey, Kevin, real quick, I was just going to say, how fired up are you? I know I would imagine you feel the same way about that hoops show that Mark's putting together, because it feels like Mark is on the precipice of like kind of where high school football was maybe, 5 years ago or whatever, where you could start to see that upward trajectory of like, feels like there's more and more high major recruits coming out in Kansas City area in basketball, that it's expanding, beyond the metro. Wichita obviously has had some guys that have been going D1 on a regular basis now from the public school system. It just feels like it could not be a better time for Mark to start the show. Couldn't be a better time for fans around high school athletics in Kansas City to jump on that show.
Yeah, Kansas City's got such a rich basketball history and rich high school basketball history. And yet it still seems like you said, the area is starting to blow up from a recruiting standpoint. You've got Link Academy not that far away down in Branson. You've got Sunrise Christian down in Wichita. And then you've got all the AAU programs and grassroots programs that are coming through Kansas City that are bringing those prospects in, as well as guys from the local high schools. And so it really does seem like sort of a golden period for Kansas City basketball is up and coming. And Mark certainly boots on the ground to be able to bring all of that to our viewers. That's very cool.
Okay, back on track. I didn't mean to.
No, you're good.
Guide you there, but I got.
You're good. You're good. Let's go ahead and get an alarm, Ryan.
Hey, it is alarm season.
Yes, for those new to the show, an alarm means one of Kansas, Kansas State, or Missouri landed a commitment this past week. And in this case, it's the Wildcats adding to their 2027 crop with Tulsa defensive lineman Dwayne Jones. Jones is a pretty common last name overall, I would say, but it's also a familiar one to Wildcat fans, given that Dwayne's brother, Wayne Jones, played linebacker for the Wildcats. What are the Cats getting in Dwayne Jones, Ryan?
Well, yeah, I got to know actually Wayne Jones and the family quite well during his recruitment. He was one of the later Snyder guys that they brought in from Oklahoma, an Owasso kid, I believe. Played some safety, as you mentioned, towards the end of his career with Chris Kleiman. They started moving him up into the box a little bit more. He started games at safety, linebacker, appeared in 36, started 18. And from what I remember about Wayne, he was kind of just keep your nose down, right, and put in the work. I would imagine that much of the same, knowing dad a little bit, I think much of the same will hold true for Dwayne. But I think with Dwayne, obviously two different players. Wayne was more that safety that could come into the box. Dwayne lives in the box. He is in the trenches, all, 6'2", 265 pounds of him, but he brings a little bit more athleticism to the mix. He's still got that physicality. Wayne, for a smaller guy, had that nose for physicality and being rough and tumble. He was a hell of a tackler for Charlotte the one season that he landed there from the transfer portal after K-State. But when you watch Dwayne, like, again, 6'2", 265, but he's such a versatile piece up front for K-State. I thought he had good get off on his size when I was watching the tape, but again, he lines up anywhere from, you saw him outside at a 5 tech to inside at a 2I, at again handling his business wherever you put him at just 265 pounds. I thought Kevin, again, when I watched him on tape, great eyes and patient up front, like never lost sight of the play development that was happening in the backfield while still maintaining his responsibility and not getting outside of what, his fit was for that particular play. And it's funny because earlier today, as we record this, they had the D linemen going through things in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, and I had the defensive tackles on, and there's a guy named Albert Regis, 6'1", 300 plus pounds, out of Texas A&M, and I'm watching him move, and I go and watch his tape. I thought he had a pretty good day in Indianapolis, and then I am thinking about Dwayne Jones for this show, and I'm like, well, that's who Jordan Peterson sees. Dwayne Jones is his Albert Regis at K-State. And again, you go back and watch Albert Regis, you'll understand what I'm talking about, the correlation there of a guy that, again, probably finds his fit more often than not in the inside, but a guy who's got some burst, some athleticism, and some physicality to get it done, regardless of kind of whatever gap they want to put him in. I think this is a really solid get for K-State. And I'll toss it back to you by saying this and finishing on this note. When you go and look at the offers, we talk about it on the show all the time. Arkansas offered, Arizona State offered, Cal, Missouri, LSU, among many others. But what caught my attention with that select group that I just named, I think about the coaches, right? Deke Adams at Arkansas think what you want about Arkansas. Like, he has cultivated some pretty good defensive line prospects, right? Dyron Reynolds at Arizona State. Of late, Arizona State's had some dudes up front, like CJ Fight comes to mind, right? Justin Wilcox, the Cal offer that came before he was let go at Cal. Those type of, Missouri, LSU, everybody knows what they've done on the D-line. Those are, it's one thing to have the Power 4 offers, Kevin. It's another when they're critical Power 4 offers from places that have, a reputable history and past resume at your position.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the patience part of it too, because I thought he had heavy hands, but the thing that I thought he paired well with that was he didn't lunge, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy who controlled people with his hands and then had the patience to see something develop. And he had the balance where he didn't overextend himself and left himself in position to make a lot of plays. And so there are a lot of defensive linemen that can move people around, that are strong enough. But a lot of times they take themselves out of plays because they're spending too much time moving guys around. I thought he had really good vision, patience, balance to make a lot of plays alongside that defensive front. I think he's going to be a heck of a player at K-State.
Good get. They're loading up on the defense. Now everybody's excited to see, okay, who's going to be the first offensive commit for Colin Klein?
For sure. Moving on, it's NFL Scouting Combine week, and there are a number of local players looking to make their NFL dreams a reality. Let's take a look at those players in the order that they'll be working out. Some of them have already started by the time we're filming this show. Former Richmond star Keyshawn Elliott is the lone local linebacker. Two defensive linemen have the eyes of NFL scouts in Texas A&M's Cassius Howell, who played for Rockhurst and is tracking probably likely to be the first local player off the board in the upcoming NFL draft, and Iowa State's Dominique Orange, who had a great career at North Kansas City. There are three local tight ends working out, including Howell's Rockhurst teammate, John Michael Gillenborg, former number one player in the state of Kansas and Hayes High School's Jaron Kanik, who of course played some linebacker at OU before moving over to offense, and Linden standout Miles Kitzelman. Kitzelman also plays junior college ball locally at Hutchinson Community College, as did Malik Benson, a wide receiver from Lansing who finished up his career at Oregon. Fellow wide receiver J. Michael Sturdivant started his high school career at Blue Valley Northwest before transferring in high school down to Texas, a similar path to Jaden Roberts, a dominant player at St. Thomas Aquinas who finished up his high school career in the Lone Star State before going to Alabama. Sam Hecht is the only player on the combine list to play both his high school and college ball locally. Hecht was terrific at Mill Valley before becoming a stalwart on Kansas State's offensive line. And Bo Stevens was the latest local product to star on Iowa's offensive line. He's from Blue Springs. Ryan, I want to talk to you about who you're watching this week, but first, let's go ahead and hear from the players themselves. KCSN is up at the combine this week, including our hero behind the scenes, Nick Springer, and they caught up with a pair of local talents. First, let's hear from Iowa State's Dominique Orange about what he learned from playing his high school football in the Kansas City area. Here's Dom.
I'll be honest, you always got to have that grit. from being from Kansas City, we ain't giving nothing. It's not like we in Texas, we automatically gonna get a 5-star rating on our 24/7 wherever it is. We got to earn everything I have. So going to Iowa State, I was hungry. I was wanting to get the starting spot immediately. I wanted to play immediately. There was no such thing as redshirt. I wasn't going for that. So me being from Kansas City, me being as hungry as I am, that taught me, go out there and be the best I can be, and don't take nothing from nobody.
Do you feel like the Kansas City area is under recruited at all? Maybe do you feel like the Kansas City area is under recruited? There's talent
Absolutely.
there.
I mean, every year we got some type of talent. I mean, you look in the past recent drafts, Kansas City has always snuck up and got somebody, and they ended up being one of those players that stuck around for a long time. So I mean, schools, if y'all listening, go recruit Kansas City. They got them dogs now.
And Miles Kitzelman had a great message for small-town Kansans everywhere after emerging from Linden, Kansas, population of roughly 1,000 people, to put himself right on the NFL's doorstep. Check it out.
Being from a small town, when I do make it to the league, I think I'll be the first person from my school to make it to the league. So it's not talked about a whole lot. These big Georgia schools, these big Texas schools, everyone and their dog went to the league, it seems like. Yeah, my dad was in the league. Yeah, my brother played in the league, which was awesome for them. But where I'm from, it's not really the expectation. It's not really something that you talk about. It's not really something that you even dream about. Growing up, obviously I had 0 D1 offers, which wasn't surprising to me, I guess, because no one went D1 where I'm from. Had a couple of partial scholarships to go D2 and to play DN, and I was more than grateful for that. And luckily, God put Hush in my life and saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself at the time. But yeah, kind of what I was talking about earlier, just being where I'm from. Like, if you guys ever come visit Linden, Kansas, I'll take you out on 160 acres and all that kind of stuff. And, I think there's more cows in our county than people. And I love my home. But Linden, Kansas and the NFL are not really associated with each other. But I hope, whoever's listening, maybe it's a kid that's from a small town that doesn't really have any, D1 interest in them right now. I hope that this is just a testimony that you can do it. And as long as you have those people in your life that believe in you and you believe in yourself, it'll happen.
I kind of feel like we need to take Miles up on his hitting 160 acres in Linden, Kansas. We're down, Miles, if you ever want to take us out there. In all seriousness, when you do take a look at this strong local field at the Combine, Ryan, is there somebody that you're really watching this week? Maybe they're a top guy, maybe they aren't, but somebody that you're really interested to see how they do.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's going to be some guys that obviously will command the attention, right? Dom Orange wound up, not going through a lot of the stuff today, but, he's there. Cassius Howell, I think, tested phenomenally, which everybody kind of expected. It's all just going to be which program or franchise, I should say, is willing to look past kind of the length, the arm measurements. It's a Ruben Bain situation, but I'm with you. I do feel like he's destined to be kind of an into the first round guy when it's all said and done. And if he does slip into the second round, it's going to be high in that round that he'll go. But, I was thinking about this, and I think the guy for me that, and he's probably one of the deepest cuts on here, but I feel like he's got a chance. When you think about the Combine, it's so much about testing, right? And you can have some guys that maybe aren't the best football players, but test through the roof, right? And they command the attention just over the course of 2 days, as opposed to, folks kind of ignoring what their body of work says, like John Ross from Washington, right? Darius Hayward Bay, you can go down the list. But at the same time, I feel like that this is a weekend that our boy J&G, John Michael Gillenborg, is going to really open some eyes. Again, Cassius Howell's commanding big time attention. Malik Benson is a guy that I think people are already expecting to go out there and test really well. Jaden Roberts is a guy that obviously is going to look the part. He'll test really well. But again, when you
is he going to bench press about 60 times?
Oh yeah, I mean that's he's that to me that was too low hanging fruit.
Yeah, sure.
With J&G, with Gillenborg, this is a guy that if you go look at the stats at Wyoming, nothing's going to be overly impressive for you there. But again, I feel like that doesn't tell the full story of what all he can do. He was in a run first situation at Wyoming, but when he was given opportunities, I thought he made the most of them and then some. I thought he was really good at the Senior Bowl at proving what he can be as a blocker. And now in an athletic setting, no pads, go out there, do the vert, go show your hands, do all those things. I can remember back to a COVID combine that I was out with Joseph Potts and Top Speed, and there's John Michael Gillenborg, all the, cornrows and everything. He was still coming out of like basketball season when he was a basketball player, and his standing vert was one of the best at that combine. And I mean, there were future FBS players that were at that combine. Desmond Purnell was actually one that I remember being at that combine, and Gillenborg like stole the show. He's gonna test way better than I think people think. And again, tight end, it feels like isn't like a loaded group this year. And again, we'll lean on Kent Swanson here and those guys in future episodes to give us, a better indication of where some of these local guys will go. But Kevin, I just feel like JMG has a chance this weekend to really climb draft boards when it comes to the tight end position, because I just feel like he's going to test so much better than people are expecting a run first Wyoming tight end to test.
Yeah, Ryan, we hear 80 bajillion rumors, obviously, and some of them come to pass. Most of them probably don't, I think. But one of the things that there was a rumor a little while ago was that he was going to hit the transfer portal, and it didn't wind up happening. But you and I talked about what that could mean if he hit the portal, and I think both of us felt if he had gone to a Big 10 or Big 12 team that really threw the ball, then he could really excel there. He's that type of athlete and that type of player that just because he wasn't playing at that level, we felt that he was capable of putting up big numbers. And so like you said, don't look at the Wyoming stats and say, oh, he's this or he isn't that, because this is a guy that you look at KU this past year, for instance, just as our local frames of reference, or K-State, schools that throw the ball to the tight end a whole bunch. If he had gone to those places, he could have had a 500-yard receiving year, and we might be talking about him totally differently.
No doubt. Like, again, and when you dig more into his history, I mean, this is a kid that just started playing football at Rockhurst, I believe, his senior season. It was like COVID was coming into effect, and I think he was just wanting to, if I remember the story right, like just wanted to kind of keep himself ready for basketball. And the next thing you know, Kelly Donahoe's like, you should really give this thing a look.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was out there with Cassius Howell. They were on the same team. Gillenborg got beat up, I think, a little bit kind of towards the end of the season in playoffs.
Felt like they had about 35 edge/tight end type athletes on that team. And like Cassius Howell played running back. Like that's how many of those guys that they had.
If it wasn't COVID year, I'd be curious to see if you could go back in time what Kelly Donahoe could have done with kind of a typical offseason with that group. But yeah, I to me, Gillenborg is the one that I think has a chance to really like come out of nowhere. But yeah, I mean, Jaden Roberts, Malik Benson, those two guys, this is the type of event that's tailor made for them. So I would expect that they'll do really well. I'm excited to watch Miles Kitzelman too, though. Going back to that quote, an outstanding quote from him and Dominique Orange. I'm ready to like run through a wall for Big Citrus when he's talking about the dogs in Kansas City, right? But yeah, I mean, we need to check what's in the water right now in Linden, Kansas too, because you've got Miles Kitzelman at the NFL Combine. You've got Tanner Heckel that's practically starting for Brett Bielema at Illinois, and Caden Massey, who, might not have worked at K-State, but he's still at James Madison, a program that, they lost their coach, but like they were just on the precipice of, or not on the precipice, they were in the college football playoff. So all three of those players from a Linden program that, is 8-man now. But, I guess Miles played at 11-man, but
they are 11. And I think they flopped down like the year after he left, they moved in.
Right. So yeah, we should check what's in the water down there, or coaches should just constantly be checking the huddle at Linden, Kansas, because something's going on down there. But yeah, excited about that. And let me also just say this as we finish here. We talk a lot about the guys that you and I hit on, and we'll call everybody and our moms until the cows come home saying, you remember how right we were about Sam Hecht? You remember how right we were about Cassius Howell? Hey, hand raised, like there's a couple other guys on this list that we didn't get it right. Like Bo Stevens was a guy I wasn't convinced that he was the guy that he was billed to be as a recruit. Dominique Orange, you and I were really high on kind of freshman, sophomore Dom, junior, senior Dom. Like there were question marks, major question marks. Credit to Iowa State for kind of looking past that and seeing what they could still, no pun intended, squeeze out of Dom Orange, and for him to, rise up to the level that he was as a freshman or sophomore at North Kansas City. So excited to see all these guys and their stories and their journeys continue on in the pros.
Yeah, we always say to the guys that we talk about that we're in love with, prove us right. And to the guys that maybe we have questions about, we would love nothing more than for you guys to prove us wrong. And we will happily eat that crow if that means, a great career for you guys every single time. So a quick reminder that you guys can follow along with us at Twitter/X at @verbalcommit_KC for clips from the show, conversations about local players, and even the odd highlight. And subscribe on KCSN Varsity to see all of our shows here on YouTube. Stay tuned for our interview with Derby coach Brandon Clark. We'll be right back.
Heather Luce, broker owner, KC Local Homes, and Emprise Bank has been a great partner for us. They're our partner in Possible. Debbie and I hit it off immediately, and she was one of the first bankers that I would say sat down with me and actually genuinely cared about my story and where I was coming from and what I was trying to do, not just what kind of loan do you need, how much equity do you have, and she really kind of laid out my options for me and just made the process make sense, and I felt comfortable with it. Start to talk about it and think about it, a building popped up that I wanted, that I could afford, and it was in a great area. And so they really guided me through the SBA. I used the SBA loan to acquire it and really guided me through that process and made it happen. I think that we talk about that a lot, where we wouldn't have a business. We wouldn't have what we have here if we didn't have the clientele that we do. I've always functioned out of a people over profits mentality. The houses sell themselves, right? I'm here to help people and facilitate the transaction for them.
Welcome back to the Verbal Commitment Podcast here on KCSN. We're joined by Derby coach Brandon Clark. Coach, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Ryan. Good to see you guys.
Coach, we'll get into talking about your team and players here in a little bit, but I wanted to start with talking about the book that you wrote with Kevin Chase and Dave Gordon, Culture Champion, Build an Unbeatable Team by Creating an Unbreakable Culture. Technically, it's a fiction book, right? But it really draws from the experiences that you had with Kevin Chase and building the culture around Derby's football program. Can you talk about that relationship, kind of how that all got started and how it led to you ultimately writing a book about it?
Yeah, well, long story short, Kevin Chase, he's our culture coach on our football team. He runs Thursday night meetings. Him and I meet every Tuesday night in the off season, talk about culture and stuff like that. But anyways, I read this one book called Tip by Dave Gordon, and it was really good. So I bought it for all our coaches. We did a book study on it, and it was so good. I just emailed Dave Gordon. I mean, it's John Gordon's brother, lived in New York City. I just want to say thanks for the inspiration. I'm going to buy this for all our coaches. So I email him. He emails me right back, says, thanks for the email. I needed that email. And he said, hey, when your coaches, after you read it, let's get on a conference call. Let's do that. Never did that. Let the season play through. It ended up being COVID season. Yeah. And we ended up winning state championship that year. And after the season, I had a list of people to email or to write a letter to thank him for the inspiration or for helping us win a state title. And wrote Dave Gordon another email and said we won state. And, a lot of that was his inspiration. It helped us get through this COVID and the tough times. And then before you knew it, Kevin and I were on a plane to New York and meeting him up in New York for a couple of days. So we kind of got that relationship going. And every time we talked to him about once a month on our Culture Tuesdays. And he kept saying, you guys need to write a book. You need to write a book. You need to write a book. So finally I told Kevin, I said, Kevin, let's if he asks us or tells us again to write a book, let's ask him to help us write it. And he, sure enough, the next conversation, he said, you guys need to write a book. And we're like, all right, Dave, well, how about you write it with us? And he said, I'd love to. So that's kind of how the book evolved. It's a lot of true stories from our football team, a lot of true stories that Kevin has lived. Kevin is a banker. He's a retired banker, sold his bank. Now he lives out on his ranch in his lodge and just ranches all the time. But yeah, he was kind of the coach in the book, and I was he was the cowboy and I was the coach. And it's almost, a lot of stuff that we've gone through here at Derby.
The book follows Luke Taylor, a third-generation CEO of a family bank and a former state champion quarterback. And he's just kind of, going through the motions a little bit. He's faltering in his life, whether it's at the bank or in his personal life, his marriage. And when he goes home to reconnect on the 20th anniversary of the state title team, he connects with his coach and the program's culture coach and starts kind of taking the steps to turn his life around. And I know, Coach, after I read this book and I talked to you about it, you said you've talked with so many people who tell you that they've seen themselves in Luke Taylor, right? They've seen, hey, I'm kind of going through the motions, or maybe I'm not as good as I could be in this. Well, what's that sort of feedback been like, and people seeing themselves in the main character of the book?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to kind of see. A lot of people are living like Luke right now, kind of in this little, I don't know, just kind of down in the dumps a little bit. Life's not going the way they want it to be going. And, the whole book's about serving others. Culture champion is not being like a state champion to win something. It's to be a champion of the culture that you're a part of, to be a champion of others, not yourself. And once you do that, you become a culture champion. So, a lot of people relate to Luke, and, coaching the Cowboy aren't the only people that, tell stories. There's Luke's mom. There's a couple other people that really give you some good insight on how to build a great culture and make you be a better person.
Derby was 0-9, I think, the year before you got there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you have this stretch from 2013 through 2023 where not only do you win 6 state titles, but you play for 3 more. At what point in there, and this is kind of my last question about the book, but at what point in there did the cultural part happen, right? Like, was it before the first state title? When did this relationship with Kevin and everything, when did that all play out?
Well, we had a character coach, our pastor, Paul Wilkie, but he's Methodist pastor, and he got moved up to Topeka to help out a church. So once he left, Kevin came on. Kevin came on in about, I think, 2016, but he's always been a part of the program. He's always emailed me, written me letters on, the day before game and stuff to inspire. We've been best friends for the past probably 23, 24 years. So he's been a big inspiration. And the bank that he ran is called Bears Bank. And it was unbelievable. I mean, you could tell they had their culture rocking. It didn't matter what branch you went in. Everybody was so friendly. Everybody got along. You could tell. I mean, I told Kevin when we invited him to be our culture coach, I said, Kevin, I want to build a culture like you have at Bears. And that's what we've been trying. But he's really made me aware of the little things that you have to do, even the words that you say to the kids or to the community that plays into your culture, that they all play a huge role into your culture.
Coach, obviously, when you talk about culture and being, a former Wildcat player under Bill Snyder, like obviously I'm also thinking of your memories under Coach Snyder. And I mean, you've been asked questions before about what it was like playing under Coach Snyder and stuff, but I'm curious too. Kevin was just talking about like when you took over the Derby program, like, is there any kind of longstanding advice or like a moment that you ever shared with Coach Snyder about, hey, I'm becoming a coach? Is there any advice or tips you might have that has carried you through now your Derby career?
Well, I mean, when to take over an 0-9 program with the community that expects state championships, they won a state championship in '94. But if you came into Derby, you think they'd won 20 state championships. So, I mean, they expect state championships. Being 0-9, going 1-8 my first year was pretty rough. I didn't want to go to Applebee's. I didn't want to go to Walmart. I didn't want to see people. So, but that discipline that Coach Snyder installed in us, the accountability, and that's all about culture too. We tell our football players, everybody uses the word culture to soften up their program, to soften up their company, to get all, sunshine and rainbows. But we say our culture is tough. Our culture is one of the toughest around. If it wasn't tough, we'd have 300 football players out at Derby High School. I mean, it's tough. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. And part of our culture is toughness and the other team's knowing it, showing it on film and hitting hard. We want to walk off the bus and people already fear us before we get into the stadium. That's part of our culture. It's just not all these fun words and making you feel good stuff.
It feels like part of the culture too is ownership, right? Everybody taking ownership in what's going on. And the reason I bring that up is I think Ryan would agree with me on this. One of the things that stands out about Derby is it's a small town in a big town, if that makes sense, being right by Wichita, and that the amount of support that you guys get on Friday nights, and when you guys go to the state title game, the way that Derby fans just take over whatever town.
Yeah, if you ever want to rob a house,
I guess the blessings and curses, kind of having the whole town have ownership in the program like that.
Yeah, and that's the way it was at K-State. We had to put so much time in, we had to put so much effort in. They would not let you slack off once. That you had to own it. You had to want it. And those people that stayed on the football team with Coach Snyder, they wanted it because they put in the effort, they put in the time, they put in all the commitment, they did it together as a team. So we had each other, and you owned it. And that's kind of what we do with our kids. We make them own it. Our kids are there in the weight room 6:30 every morning, all year long. And we can make it easy. We can make them live during school, but we do it before school just to kind of get that ownership into it. This is who we are. This is what we're about.
I love the new facility down there, but there are moments sometimes when I've come down and, it seems like we're down there at least once a year, but you do miss like that with the smoke from the grills, like coming over the old berm that was right behind. I mean, like that was pretty cool. Still, you can't beat the atmosphere at Derby on a Friday night with a big game lights. But I'm curious too, though, obviously recruiting show here too. And you kind of can speak to coaches that are watching, high school coaches that are watching, and, hopeful recruits out there, because you've seen it from a coach's standpoint. And you've obviously, you go back to like Devin Hedgepeth. Obviously, people know about Goolsby and Dylan Edwards. Like you've watched some big names and even some guys like Lim Wash that maybe didn't get like that level of recruiting attention. What kind of advice do you give to like high school coaches and some players, just based on your own experience, having literally like been in the rooms when some of those, situations and discussions are happening?
Yeah. Well, size and speed. That's the main thing people look at, and if you don't have speed or you don't have size, you better have something else that's really, really good that stands out. For players and coaches, I would say, we can sit here and gripe about all these trainers that our kids are going to and all that, but have your kids be with the team, make them come to team workouts. That's an expectation here at Derby. I don't care. My son, who's going to be a senior next year, goes and lifts with another guy after school on different, muscles and stuff like that. And then he goes and runs with Jake Sharp 2 times a week, which is okay. I like the kids to have other voices, but those people that are working your kids out also have to be on the same page as you. They have to know what the kids are doing that day and the next day, so they're not overworking muscle groups and speed. You got to have time to let your body heal, to let it repair itself so you can get bigger and stronger and faster. So a lot of these kids, they go and squat one day in the morning with their coach, and then they'll go do like heavy deadlifts that evening with the trainer or something like that. So if you don't have a trainer that asks you, what did you do today? What are you going to do tomorrow? And instead of as a head coach just griping about these trainers doing all this and ruining your kids, making them all tired and feeding them with all this nonsense, what I've done, and I just yesterday, I was texted and sent up a meeting with a trainer that works out about three or four of our kids. I was like, hey, let's sit down, let's grab some lunch, and let's talk about, I want to give you our schedule on what we're doing with all of our kids every day, so you don't overwork them, because they need time to rest, they need time to repair. I like it that they're getting extra help, but this is what we do. Now it's your job to figure out what the kid needs to do on top of that.
Ryan mentioned Dylan Edwards a little bit earlier, and I wanted to talk about Dylan because he was somebody that obviously we were down. We saw Dylan a bunch. We saw him as a freshman. We saw him all through his high school career, and we loved Dylan as a kid. Obviously, his career to this point hasn't quite gone like he would want it to go, but it does seem like, hey, this has a chance to be a pretty nice, fresh start for him at a local program in Kansas.
Yeah, and Dylan, I love Dylan to death. He's my boy. All the kids that go through our program are our boys. When he didn't sign with K-State, you got all the K-State fans mad at Coach Clark, but because he didn't send a kid. I'm not going to send a kid anywhere. They all know I love K-State. They all know I played at K-State. They all know I'm a K-State fan. And I'll have a little influence on just talking about K-State all the time, but I'm never going to tell a kid where to go. That's a life decision. And it was a life decision to go to Colorado. And then it was another life decision to say, hey, Colorado's not for me. I'm going to go to K-State. And then, things happen. There's a lot that I know from both sides. And K-State's been pretty quiet about it, but they still like Dylan. They still care about him. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on that nobody knows about.
Sure.
You get the social media, you get people talking about, oh, this and that and this and that, and none of it's true. And Dylan's a great kid, and Coach Kleiman's a great coach. K-State program's a great program, but things happen. When you have 90 guys that have always been the man at their high school program with 89 other guys like that, just like you, sometimes it's tough, and sometimes you don't get along with position coaches, players in your room that you have to spend all the time with. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. So I know there's a lot of speculation, but Dylan's a great kid, and I hope he flourishes at KU, just not during the K-State game.
With staying on K-State again for a minute, as a Golden Cat, you have that relationship with coaches that, the maybe typical high school coaches wouldn't have. But beyond that, obviously being the head coach at Derby and having some of the guys that we've already named, you also kind of have gotten in with coaches even deeper from K-State just through them being at Derby and recruiting your players. Colin Klein obviously being one of those guys. I'm curious from your perspective, you obviously knew Colin, when he was probably a player, and then when he was an assistant coach, and then he leaves for Texas A&M, and now he's back as the head coach. How is Colin different now than before he left under Chris Kleiman? Has he changed at all in the conversations that you've had with him? I know you've had a handful.
Yeah, and everybody's changed. I try to change every day for the better, and Colin has done that. Let's rewind a little bit. When Coach Kleiman retired, I was so upset. I thought Kleiman was the best fit K-State could ever find. He has a little bit of Snyder in him with the detail oriented and kind of hard on kids with the holding them accountable. But he had a little softer side too, the softer side that you need nowadays with the portal and all that stuff. And he had a really good coaching staff. And when he retired, I was pretty upset because I thought he was the perfect fit. And then they came out, and we kind of knew it. I was talking with some of the coaches there, and they hired Klein. And I really hadn't talked to Klein just a little bit when he recruited Deshaun a little bit at A&M, but haven't really connected with him for a couple years. And then we started connected, talking a little bit, and hung out a couple weeks ago at a clinic for a couple hours, and just had a good talk. But man, I'm super excited now. I go from one guy that's really upset to a guy that's really excited. He's coached underneath Coach Snyder. He's coached underneath Coach Kleiman. He's coached underneath Coach Elko. They're at A&M. At A&M, I think his biggest thing, he talked a lot about Elko being detailed and learn so much. As a head coach, you're not only the head coach of your players, you're the head coach of the coaches. He said he knew what every coach was going to talk about to the players, what they were going to go over. He was so detailed on everything that was going on in all those coaches' meetings with the players. And he said that's why we won, because he was so detailed, and he would coach us up. He would tell us, he would hold us accountable too as coaches, not just let them freelance. And the other thing I think he really learned at A&M is he learned their systems and how they do things, and the personnel that they need to be successful. When you're at a school and you have the same people over and over, you have the same positions, but he knew there needed to be different. Maybe let's not have this position, let's move it to this position or something like that. So he learned a lot of systems there too. So I think that helped out. That's going to help K-State out tremendously with everything, all the knowledge he's taken in, the behind the scenes stuff into the K-State program. So I'm super excited. And I'll tell you what, he's fired up. He's very passionate. We all know he loves K-State. And man, I'll tell you what, he's got some fire and some passion right now.
You've always loved big time matchups, even in the regular season, when you can get them, when you can challenge your program and kind of weigh yourselves against the best. I'm curious because you brought up Dylan earlier, and obviously Ryan and I remember the Dylan Edwards, Avery Johnson showdowns that were unbelievable to watch. We were at when you guys played Mill Valley, and obviously you have that relationship with Coach Appleby. Is there any matchup that you remember in particular where you're just like, oh man, that was awesome getting to play that or getting to challenge our program in that way?
When we first started, it was Hutch. Hutch was in their heyday, and I remember that game we beat them for the first time, and I think they ended up going on to win state that year. But Coach Dryling's teams, they're always tough. They're always nasty. They're kind of like the old Nebraska and the Big Eight. Just going to come down there and just steamroll you. And then like you said, we went down to up to Kansas City, and Coach Appleby came down to Derby a couple times. Got to play them. It's kind of funny. We in Kansas, we kind of set our schedule a little early. We did it a couple months ago, and then all of a sudden I started getting all these texts. And we've always tried to go down south and try to play Oklahoma schools, but nobody would ever play us. But somehow they have these extra free games or something like that in Oklahoma, and we were getting texts from Jinx, from Bigsby, like, "Hey coach, are you available this week?" And I was like, gosh, I wish you guys would have done this about 2 months ago when we were going down there.
Speaking of Coach Appleby, there was a moment, Kevin and I were at that coaches clinic that you referred to earlier, and there was a moment, I think, after Coach Leipold was done, and I glance over, and again, cool moment, over across the room, there's you, Coach Appleby, and Randall Zimmerman. Like, again, it's neat for guys like Kevin and I. It's like a who's who, and then you get to see you guys kind of outside your shell. But the first thought that I had was, hey, that's pretty cool. Like, three coaches that don't get to kind of chat it up very often. Well, at least you and Coach Zimmerman. But then my second thought was, have conversations with you and Coach Appleby maybe changed a little bit, where maybe you used to share some ideas knowing, well, I'm never going to see you in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Where now it's like, I got to keep a few things closer to that.
Oh, no. He's an open book. I'm an open book. We talk at least once a day, if not twice a day, on the phone. He was just up here for a couple of weeks. His mother was in the hospital. She's not doing too well. And he stayed with us, and that's about all we did when he was over here, is just talk football and talk about things that we're going to change and things that we're going to do next year. But going back to Zimmerman, Joel was coaching with Zimmerman, underneath Zimmerman, when I was still in college. And Joel and I, he was a teacher there at Junction City, but he was living in Manhattan with me while I was playing at K-State. And so I got to know Zimmerman early as I was playing at K-State, and got to know his son as a young kid and all that. I got to watch him grow up. But anyways, Coach Zimmerman he's been a role model. He's been a mentor to both Joel and I. I don't think he gets enough credit at Junction City for the type of kid that he gets in for a year, then loses them a week before the season starts because their parents get moved to some other base. But he just loves those kids up so much, and I don't think there's a better fit. And when he retires there, Junction City is going to have a big void.
Want to talk to you a little bit about your current players. And, it feels like if you go and watch a Derby team play, you're going to see a sawed-off running back, right? It feels like it was that way, in the Old Testament. It's that way in the New Testament, and will be, in the prophecies ever since. And you guys have a pretty good one in Arius Finley, who, popped really early on in his career. I know he battled some injuries this year, but what are you seeing from Arius? And is he a guy that could maybe take advantage of the camp circuit this summer and put himself in front of some people and maybe see those offers sort of start to rise?
Yeah, he's going to have to. He's going to have to go to Kansas. And we've talked about this too. He's going to have to show that he is fast. He can run, he can move, he can change directions. I mean, he's tough, which he is all the above. This year was going to be his breakout year. Tears his MCL, grade 2, in the second week of training camp, the couple days before our week of training for the first game, getting ready for the first game. Ends up playing in that game, plays hurt, never really fully recovers, then sprains his ankle, and his MCL starts getting a little bit better. Then now his ankle's all black and blue and still continues to play. We finally got him to sit out. We've been trying to get him sit out for at least 2 or 3 weeks. Finally set out the first round of playoffs against Topeka. And brought him back, still injured against Junction City. So we never saw the full Arius. And I guarantee this would have been his breakout year with his speed that he had this summer, the way he was running the ball in summer camp. I mean, it was just explosive. He was good as sophomore year. He was 10 times better. But we saw the version of Arius being hurt, the injured Arius. And he still was one of the best running backs in the state, if not the best running back in the state, probably going about 80%. So, if he can stay healthy this summer, I think he's going to pop off some good times and show how tough he is and show how strong he is and elusive he is. And then if it takes a couple games to get some more film just to show how fast he is on film, I think he's going to be one of those late big-time recruits.
We've talked about Arius. We've talked about Kalen Scarth on the show. who is kind of that next man up? Who's starting to generate some steam here in the offseason as we get into combine and camp season?
Yeah, we got Kalen, we got Weston Jackson. That was our center. Might move him to tackle. He's almost 6'4" now and about 280, moving really well. He plays center for us. We've got that Kyler Walker, who hasn't really played significant time for us, but he's about 6'6", 248. I think he weighed in the other day. Tight end. So we got another good tight end. You know, we've been blessed with good tight ends here.
Yeah.
We've got a couple receivers that are really good. Michael Castillo. He's kind of generating some buzz. He's got some wiggle, and he's actually gotten a lot faster. My son's actually getting a lot faster, getting bigger, throwing the ball really, really well. He's been working really hard this offseason, so I'm excited about him at quarterback. We've got two outside backers, Brody Hopper and Taylon Washington, both sophomores right now, 6'3", both over 200 pounds. One's about 210, the other one's about 205, and legit athletes. They can move, they can jump, and they're smart. So they've got the size, they got the ability. So I think they're going to be some of the big names coming out. We've got some other guys, we got plenty of guys that are younger that are going to generate buzz. But I'm excited. We're just kind of looking for some size right now up front on the O-line and D-line.
Felt like your guys' defense got better and better as you went on. How much of that was kind of finding those sophomore linebackers? Because watching the tape, Hopper being sort of that overhang guy,
Yep.
it seemed like he did a lot of great things for you, and then Washington seems to have such great instincts, like the way that he sifts through, and you don't usually see that from guys that young.
Yeah, it was Washington's freshman year, and there's a recruiter from. We've got during recruiting season, we've got 10 to 15 coaches that stop by. It's like I almost have to get a full-time sub to call these kids out of class and talk about our kids and stuff. But there was a recruiter from the East Coast, and I was like, "What are you doing here? I've never seen you. Why is your school out here?" And they were looking at the quarterback from Mays.
Yeah.
He was like, "Yeah, we heard to come to Derby, so I just at least wanted to stop by another school." And I was teaching PE at the time. I was like, "Hey, we got to watch this kid. He was playing basketball. It's Taylon Washington." I said, "That's a little freshman linebacker over there." And right as I pointed at him, he drives down the lane, comes up, windmills over a guy, and just dunks over him as a freshman. That guy's jaw just dropped. And he's like, "I need to talk to him." But he's special. Brody was a JV starter for us, a hard worker. We coached his older brother, Mason Hopper, but he was just a little bit shorter. He was a 3-year starter for us, but Brody was a JV guy, and he was running scout team. And I kept telling our defense coordinator, Coach Wietrix, I was like, "Hey, Brody is killing us on scout team. Like, we haven't seen an outside backer that's as good as him on scout team." I said, "You need to start pulling him up with the twos a little bit more and maybe give him a chance to roll in with the ones." And by like about the playoffs, he starting and became the leading tackler during the playoffs for us. So those two kids are going to be special for us, and we got 2 more years with them. So I'm excited.
I got one more for you, Coach, and then we'll get you out of here, and can't thank you enough for taking time with us.
Yeah.
But I will warn you, it's a little bit of a controversial hot topic. So we're putting you on the hot seat. It's one that Kevin has probably discussed with you before. And it's a range of opinions. Kevin and I kind of have one, but
I know where he's going.
State championship sites. What is your opinion? You've been in a lot of them. There's obviously the push for the single site. There's kind of what we have now, which is like the almost single site. And then obviously you played where everybody is at their own location. Your thoughts and opinions on maybe the best setup for Kansas?
Well, I know Keisha prefers the multi-site because that takes less personnel to manage, 8-9 different sites, how many over state championships we have. As a coach, as a guy that lives in a community that the fans travel, I prefer single site. I prefer it, and I've never coached in a state championship at K-State or KU. I've been to one year. We didn't make it, and Joel Mill Valley made it at Pitt State, and I almost thought Pitt State Stadium was almost too big too. But that's it. It was a nice venue. But I think the K-State KU way too big. You can pack it in with 10,000 fans from each stand, and it still feels empty. You know, you bring 20,000 into Emporia, it's standing room only, and it's unbelievable atmosphere. You bring in 20,000 to Washburn Rural, where we played our first state championship in 2013. It's unbelievable. The place was packed. It was loud. It was just crazy. And same thing every time we played Emporia. I think we played there 8 times, and it's just been an unbelievable atmosphere. And then that goes to the next part is our fans. They will show up for a 1 o'clock game at 7 or 8 o'clock if it's a state championship. They're going to grill out. They're going to have fun. All the old alumni are back. It's Thanksgiving weekend. You know, it's just one big party out there during the tailgate. When we drive by, I mean, half of Derby's already in the parking lot, and we haven't even started pregame yet. We're just getting to the stadium. And then if you win, you want to celebrate. They go out and tailgate again, or if you win a state championship, you're on the field for at least another hour, you know. But looking at the timelines of playing 2 games, you know, I don't know how how you really fit all those people. You know, you got 4 sets of fans that are, you know, people want to tailgate, but people are watching the game. And I mean, parking has to be a nightmare. The logistics on getting the team off the field that wants to celebrate and take pictures and be with the fans and stuff. Get out of here, get out of the locker room. We got to bring another team in the locker room because we got to play this game at this time. So I don't think it's fair to the teams. We haven't done a double one yet. Hopefully we get to here in the future. Hopefully it's changed by then, but I'm a big fan of just one site per 6A or 5A, and then at not a small venue, but a venue that can, you know, hold 20,000 people, 16,000 people, that makes it feel super packed. And it's special. Those games truly are special.
Well, thanks again, Coach, for coming on the show. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening to the Verbal Commitment Podcast here on KCSN. If you enjoyed what you saw or heard, leave us a comment or review, like this video, subscribe here on YouTube or on our new KCSN Varsity channel, or hit us with a 5-star rating if you're listening on an audio platform. And until next time, we'll see you on the trail, and take care.